Hello.
Hi, Archie, AKA Book Eating Boy, AKA Bear on Bike. How are you today? You are silent. Your mouth is moving, but no sound is coming out. Let's have class using sign language. You know what this says? What am I going to do with you? I just realized that anyone watching our video today will probably not have any idea what we were just doing because I did not set up Zoom to show us side by side. And so Zoom will only show the person who's making noise, but neither one of us were making any noise. So I don't know who Zoom will show. I don't think it will go back and forth between silent and silent and silent and silent. So I will have to see what that looks like. I might have to edit out the whole thing. Okay, we are starting our last project for Jigsaw Jones. I have this divided up into 3 projects on Explain Everything. So you can see if you look down to the slide number on the bottom, there are 16 slides left in our book, chapters 9, 10, and 11. So because we are starting a new project, we cannot flip back very easily to the previous chapters. I can pull out our book here and look here, or I can close this project and open up one of the other 2. Okay. Now, remember where we left off at the end of chapter 8 is that Jigsaw and his partner Mila are going to leave school in the afternoon and go back to where the scarecrow was and look for clues. And after school, they saw the school bus, which reminded Mila of a comment that Buzzy Lennon had made. And it turns out that Buzzy is the boyfriend of Kim's sister, Kayla. And finding out all of that information is what Jigsaw called his lucky break. Lucky break. It really helped him start to put the pieces together or the clues together for this mystery. The mystery of who took the necklace, why did they take it, and why did they want Jigsaw to be the one to go to the drop-off? But first, Mila wants to investigate the mystery of the scarecrow. And how is it that a scarecrow who is not alive could actually be walking and looking like it is alive? So let's go to chapter 9, which is called the Rigby Place. So here's the picture. Here's the Rigby Place, and here is where they are going. But first, Jigsaw is going to tell us about how, as a kid, he loved connect the dots. And so let me just show you, I have 3 examples of some connect the dots. Here is one. Can you look at these dots and take a guess as to what you would see if you connected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7?
Jack.
Okay.
Maybe it's the story of Jack and the Pea.
Or Jack and the Beanstalk, maybe?
Yes.
Jack and the Beanstalk, the magic beans. Yes, and this number goes all the way up to 100, I see here. That's what I was thinking that might be. And here's another connect the dots. This one looks like it goes up to maybe number 35. What do you think this one would be?
A lion.
Yes, I think so too. And then here we have one more.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, yeah. This one goes up to, well, it's 57, maybe 60 or 62. I don't know if I see anything higher than 62. So those are connect the dots. Have you ever done a connect to the dot? Jigsaw explains. You drew a line from one dot to the next, then another, then another. Almost magically, a picture appeared. Detective work. So he's going to make a comparison between connect the dot puzzles and doing detective work. You could call this a comparison, or you could call it an analogy. An analogy is making a comparison between two things. So he compares it to detective work. Detective work was the same thing. One clue led to the next and the next. With Mila's new fact, I drew a line from Kayla Lewis to Buzzy Lennon. A picture was coming into focus. I reviewed the facts of the case. These are the clues. Kim said it was a boy's voice on the phone. Mila heard a girl giggling in the background. Could it have been Buzzy and Kayla? Buzzy, the boy on the phone, and Kayla, the girl giggling in the background? I tested my idea on Mila as we rode our bikes to the Rigby place. Interesting, she said. But how could Kayla have been with Buzzy? She answered the phone. Remember? I gestured angrily. Remember, gesturing is communicating with our hands. So it's using our hands to communicate a message. A gesture could be something simple, like waving our hand, hello. A thumbs up, like good job. Now, thumbs up has different meanings in different cultures and different countries. But in America, a thumbs up means good job. The other day when we were having class, I said, if you understand, give me a thumbs up. That's a gesture. When we were, this would be like, I don't get it. Maybe in class at an American school, this might mean I don't get it, I do get it, or I kind of get it, sort of, a little bit, maybe. In Taiwan, when people have their picture taken, they often put up two fingers like hello. That's a gesture. I don't know that this one is very respectful, but I remember when we were kids, if we heard something that we thought was a crazy idea, we might go like this and kind of twirl our finger around next to our ear to say, boy, that sounds like a crazy idea. That would be a gesture. Now, in this picture, Jigsaw is gesturing angrily. So he's using his hand and he's pointing at what's happening over here on this. I don't know if this is a telephone pole or a tree, but this was a sign or a flyer or a poster. And it looks like it had been torn down. Oh, a telephone pole. I gestured angrily at another telephone pole. Look at that, I complained, pointing to the ripped bits of paper. All of my brother's signs have been torn down. How are they going to get any business? Remember, his brothers, Nick and Daniel, had put up their flyer all over town saying,
leave our leaves to us. If you don't like them, coming, you'll love them leaving. We're like birds. Cheep, 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 called Daniel or Nick. 5, 5, 5, 4, 5, 2, 3.
Awesome. So that was their flyer. And they put that up all over town. But Jigsaw is finding out that those flyers are getting torn down. Someone is taking them down. So they're talking about the signs that they have found torn down from the telephone poles. Do you think Buzzy is behind it? Mila asked. Yes, I thought. Buzzy Lennon might be behind, here comes some italics, a lot of things. We arrived in front of the Rigby house. Now, when we say that someone is behind something, when we say that he might be behind a lot of things or behind something, we're not saying, gee, what's behind this book? Oh, it's my phone. My phone is behind the book. We're using a different meaning of the word being behind something, and it means being responsible for. So when Jigsaw says that he thinks Buzzy Lennon might be behind something or more than one thing, he's thinking that Buzzy Lennon might be the one responsible for several different things that are happening in this story, that he might be the one doing things that are a mystery. For example, at the moment, it's a mystery about what's happening to Daniel and Nick's signs. Why are these signs being torn down all over the town? And who's doing it? Why and who? Those are two questions that have not been answered. So that's a mystery. If Jigsaw thinks that Buzzy is behind this, that means he thinks that Buzzy is the one tearing down the signs, tearing down the flyers. Well, that might make sense because these signs are for competition for Buzzy's leaf raking business, right? These signs are Daniel and Nick saying, don't hire Buzzy, come hire us. We are cheap. We will not cost so much money and we will do a good job. So if people start hiring Nick and Daniel instead of Buzzy, then Buzzy gets less business. So his competition might be doing better than him. He might not want the neighbors and the people in the town to find out that Daniel and Nick are offering a leaf raking business for cheap. So if he tears the signs down, then people will not find out. And if they don't know about it, then they won't call Daniel or Nick. So that would make sense that it would be the competition, Buzzy, who's tearing the signs down. But they do not have any proof of that. They can't prove it. No one has seen Buzzy actually doing it. So it's still a mystery. Jigsaw has a theory, he has an idea. He believes that Buzzy is behind it, that Buzzy is the one doing it or responsible for doing it, but he can't prove it, at least not yet. So we're adding this to another mystery in the story, more questions that have not been answered. So here when he says he might be behind a lot of things, that means maybe a lot of the mysteries going on in the story are things that Buzzy has had something to do with, or has been responsible for, or is the explanation for. Maybe the necklace mystery, maybe the scarecrow mystery, maybe the signs being torn down from telephone poles mystery. We've had several mysteries so far. We arrived in front of the Rigby house. Let's take a closer look at this scarecrow, Mila said, leaping off her bike. The scarecrow was ordinary in every way. Just a bunch of leaves, gloves for hands. The legs were tied with string to keep the leaves from falling out. A lot of footprints around here, Mila noted. The dirt surrounding the bushes had been walked on recently. I put my sneaker beside the footprint. Whoever made the footprints had big feet. Well, we know these prints weren't made by him. I pointed at the scarecrow. Look, no feet. So the scarecrow did not have any feet. So how could it leave footprints? It couldn't. if someone is walking, they leave footprints. If the scarecrow was walking.
But why would Jigsaw know the scarecrow is a girl or a boy?
That's a very good question, Archie. And I don't think that Jigsaw can tell if the scarecrow is supposed to be a boy or a girl. So maybe he's just going with the boy pronouns. When he says made by him, you're right, he is, because him is talking about the scarecrow. That's a really good question, right? He could have said her, but he said him. So maybe just by, you can't really tell just by the clothes, you know, the scarecrow is wearing. If I look back in chapter 8, Kayla had asked Jigsaw to remember all the details that he could about the scarecrow. And he said the scarecrow was wearing a flannel shirt, blue jeans, and heavy black shoes. Now, a girl could wear those too. So you can't tell from the clothes that it's definitely a boy. However, it's interesting that he said heavy black shoes. And now when they're looking at the scarecrow, there's no feet and there's no shoes. So the scarecrow could not leave footprints. So that's interesting that Jigsaw remembers back when he was dropping off the money and picking up the necklace, except that he didn't have to drop off the money, right? He just got the necklace.
Can we go back the pages to look the picture?
Sure, let's go look. Here is where, here's the chapter. This was chapter 5, the scarecrow. And here we have Jigsaw finding the necklace in the tree. And if we zoom in at the Rigby house and look at the scarecrow, what do you see on its feet? Big black shoes.
Yes. Can we go back the pages to see when we are now?
This is when Jigsaw and Mila were on their way to Kim's house.
There's no shoe.
Yeah, did you see that?
Shoe.
There's no shoes. There we go. So here we can see no shoes, right?
Yes.
So remember, he had told her in chapter 8 that he remembered those big black shoes. So let me go up and pull those in. So we remember that in chapter 8, when Mila was treating Jigsaw like a witness and saying, what do you remember from when you saw the scarecrow walk, when you went to the drop-off? Well, here is when he went to the drop-off and he got the necklace from the tree and he looked over here, and this is where we can see that the scarecrow has these big black shoes on. But if we go back to the beginning of the story, when Mila and Jigsaw were walking to Kim's house and went by the Rigby place, well, there is the scarecrow, and let's see, we zoom in, it doesn't have shoes. So that was at the beginning of the story. So this one was no shoes. That's at the beginning of the story on the way to Kim's house. And this one is when Jigsaw was finding the necklace at the drop-off and he saw the scarecrow walk. So very interesting. I don't think they have figured that out yet. And actually, we probably, if we could have figured that out when we saw that picture, but that's a very small detail to remember. So they're noticing that there's a lot of footprints. They're noticing that the footprint is bigger than Jigsaw's. It's bigger than Jigsaw's foot. But they also know that it wasn't made by, it says the prints weren't made by the scarecrow because they look at the scarecrow and say, look, no feet. Next, I examined the scarecrow with my magnifying glass. So here's a magnifying glass. Here you can see kind of a cartoon of someone walking along, looking maybe at these footprints. using their magnifying glass. So magnifying glass, you can see here, it's making those little letters much, much bigger. So a magnifying glass lets you look at something that's small and lets you see it much bigger. So he wants to look at the footprints. He wants to look at whatever he can see in the dirt around the scarecrow. And he sees a pattern of dirt smudges ran along the side of the scarecrow. It looks like it's been lying in the dirt, Mila said, like someone had stuffed it underneath the bushes. Now, who would do that, I wondered, and why? More and more questions. Who would do that? Why would they do that? Suddenly, Mila slapped her forehead and exclaimed like this. Someone might do that when they had just remembered something and they can't believe that they're just now remembering it or just now thinking of something that maybe they think was so obvious they should have thought of it before now. She says, how could I be so dumb? She reached behind the scarecrow and fumbled with the shirt collar. My father's a neat freak, Mila jabbered. Jabbered is kind of a silly way to say said. He organizes everything. He even writes my name in the back of all my clothes. She smiled triumphantly. Look, she said. I craned my neck and read the label. We're looking for a kid named Eddie Bauer, I said. That's the clothing label, Mila said. Read the other name. So in the back of a shirt, if it's by a company called Eddie Bauer, then you might see this in the back of the shirt, and it will tell you the name of the company, and it will tell you what material it's made out of, and maybe where it's made. So here you can see a shirt or a sweater, and it's by Eddie Bauer. That's a company, a clothing company in the United States. I have clothes by Eddie Bauer. And she says, read the other name. I read the name that was printed in black marker, Fuzzy Lennon. I looked up into the trees. So the clothes on the scarecrow belong to Fuzzy Lennon. I looked up into the trees. There were hardly any leaves left. The sky was crisp and bright. Halloween was next week, then Thanksgiving, then the frozen days and nights of winter. I turned to the front door of the sad old silent house. Let's see if the doorbell works, I said. The door slowly opened with an eerie squeak. Eerie means kind of spooky. Mrs. Rigby's small red-rimmed eyes blinked in the sun. Yes, what is it? She asked. Dun, 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 dun. Next time, we are going to meet Mrs. Rigby. She just opened the door. I wonder what Jigsaw and Mila are going to say to her. But first, let's take a look at Mila and Jigsaw. They have their magnifying glass. They're looking at the tag at the back of the shirt. They can see there's no big black shoes on the scarecrow. So they're investigating. They can see the dirt smudges alongside the edge of the clothes. They're gathering clues, and they will put them together and solve one mystery after another. There are several mysteries now that they need to solve. Okay, it is time to say,
no.
It is time to say, so.
So long. Chatter. Chip.
So long, Cheddar Chip.
Bye-bye.